Oh, you're going home for Thanksgiving? Where do you live? Can I come? Is it an open invitation? Don't put it together like that, chat. Don't put it together like that. Does anyone else feel like a filler friend? Like you just sit there, never contributing to the conversation, and when you do, no one notices. You don't really have a purpose or do anything and kind of just sit there existing. No one ever invites you ever or asks to do anything with you. And people even make group plans right in front of you and neglect your presence. It's not that anyone means for this to happen. It just kind of does. So this is tricky. Because sometimes we're just kind of like a placeholder friend, filler friend. Sometimes we exist within social circumstances that we're not really like a part of the group. So we exist in the group or maybe with the group, but we're not really a part of the group. And the tricky thing about this, like what makes this hard is that like, you know, the group isn't really including you. So it's kind of like they're not being nice, like they're not making an effort to include you, or sometimes you feel ignored because sometimes you're not speaking at all and sometimes you say a little bit and your words get ignored. But then the really tricky thing is like, what do you do about it, right? Because you can't go to a group and say, hey, y'all aren't including me. Like they're not going to magically be your friend if you're like, hey, you're leaving me out, right? Like, and then the other thing is that sometimes we're kind of aware that it may not just be the group's fault. That sometimes it's like actually like there's got to be something maybe that we're doing. We're kind of aware, right? Maybe we're a little bit socially anxious. Maybe we don't really participate in the conversation. Maybe we're like really worried about what participation in the conversation will look like. So being a filler friend is tough because you're not sure, you can't really hold the group accountable, and it's not entirely your fault. Which then gets us into the problem of like, okay, how do I fix it then? Because this is a problem, right? I can't go up to people and say, hey, be my friend, asshole. Start including me. Because like, that's not going to work. And then, but you're not really sure like how to fix it. So we're going to go over a couple of things that are a little bit tricky. Because I think largely in this situation, what I tend to find is that there's a lot that you can do that oftentimes we don't do. So the first thing that we're going to try to understand is group dynamics. So I'm going to ask y'all a question. Let's say there's a group of 6 people that are talking about stuff. And one of them is like, hey, do y'all want to go do something on Friday? We should totally do that. Yeah, I'm totally down. What do you think is the most important thing in a group of like 6 people that determines who gets invited or who comes along? So I would say this is where perceived interest, so people are saying status, but it's perceived interest, right? So like, just think about that for a second. Think about who you would invite. When you're thinking about who to invite, like when do you invite people and when do you not invite people? Right? Do you like look at, oh, this person has the highest social status in the group, so let me make sure to invite them. Think about when you would invite people. Or you're like, oh, like that person's rich and this person is poor. Screw that poor guy. I'm going to invite the rich guy or girl. Right? Easiest to be around. People are saying that. If some people are saying invite everyone. I don't invite boring people. So I think the most important thing for invitations is perceived interest. Or maybe it's not the most important thing for invitations, but it is one of the things that I think people who don't get invited to stuff consider. So the next thing that I want you all to think about is when you don't get invited to something, how would someone else in that group perceive your interest in doing the activity? And what we tend to find, if we want to be a little bit careful here, like you just sit there never contributing to the conversation. And when you do, no one notices. So if someone is in the group and never contributing to the conversation, what do you think that does for their perceived interest? Or when they communicate, they don't really they contribute a little bit, but not much. So there may be situations where people aren't inviting you because they're toxic or they're not very friendly or things like that. But that's like, we can't really control that. Whereas we've got to think about, okay, what can we control and what can we possibly do? And I'd start with this idea of perceived interest. And so you've got to think critically about, is the group that you're in, would they perceive that you're interested in going along? Because if there's like, one person, like if we're all talking about going to an anime convention, there's one person who's sitting there and hasn't said a word, would I invite them to the anime? Like, they must not be interested in anime, so why would I invite them to the convention? It's kind of interesting. So think a little bit about your their perception of your interest in the activity. And the next thing we're going to talk about is participation. So how do you make it so that they see your interest? You have to participate. And that's where if you're not saying much, you're not participating much. So how do you participate? Why don't you participate? Let's start with the second one. First thing is that we talk about participate. Participation is tough, okay? Let's be clear. Participation ain't easy. It's like, I'm not even that into anime, but I watch a little bit of it. And I'd like to go and do it. It sounds interesting. Sometimes we don't participate because of how people will perceive us, right? If I participate and people don't listen, or if I participate and no one cares, like what if no one cares? Like what if this, what if this, what if this? So the second thing that I want you to ask yourself is, do you not participate because of the what ifs? If I say this, what if they don't like it? If I say this, what if they don't invite me? If I say this, what if they don't think I'm cool? If you've got a case of the what ifs and it's paralyzing your participation, that's really tricky. Because as you don't participate, they don't perceive interest and you don't get invited. So what do you do with that? You can go see a therapist and work on your social anxiety, sure. But there's actually like a couple of simple techniques. I'm going to teach y'all what I call like kind of the 1-2 punch of benign participation, which gets me into all kinds of trouble. So I use this trick all the time. I sort of do it a little bit reflexively, and then I wind up in conversations that I don't want to be in. Like I'll use this 1-2 punch almost reflexively when I'm sitting next to someone on an airplane. The next thing I know, they're talking to me about their life. And it's like, well, I just want to play Nintendo Switch. So it works really well. All right, so the 1-2 punch is that when someone says something, you make a comment, and then you follow up with a question. The comment should be essentially a reflection or a reaction to what the person is saying, followed by an inquiry about ambiguity. Okay? I'll give you all a simple example. I love anime. Reflection or reaction. Anime is dope. Followed by inquiry that resolves ambiguity. Which anime do you like? Okay? I know it's complicated terms. We're going to use them again. So first is a reflection or a reaction. And second is dig into ambiguity. It's a response. Asking a question that is digging into the ambiguity. So if someone says, I like anime, which anime? Like, what are they talking about? Are they talking about current anime, old anime? Are they talking about hentai? Are they talking, like, what are they talking about? Like, who knows? So that's where you want to start, because if you just ask questions, it's going to feel like you're interrogating people. It's like, what anime do you like? Why do you like that anime? What's your favorite character? What's your favorite character's favorite hairstyle? Did you notice that like, which hairstyle do you like? Which clothing do you like? Which accent do you like? Which voice do you like? Right? That's going to feel like interrogation. So what we want to do is a reaction followed by digging into ambiguity. I love anime. Anime is dope. Anime is great. Which ones are your favorite? Got it? It's that simple. You just toss those suckers out like a couple times. You don't want to be like doing it all the time. So 15 to 20% of the time, if you're in conversation with 6 people, you just toss those out. Man, I've got a test on Friday. I hate studying for tests. What's your test in? Okay. Now let's practice, chat. I'm going home for Thanksgiving. What's the reaction? What do y'all think? All right, and some people are saying, are you going to see family? Homes are dope. I don't care. I hate your home. Why are you going? Cool. Looking forward to going home? Right? What's a home? What's Thanksgiving? Where are you going back to? I hate my family. I love turkey. All right, that's good. Y'all, I think, so the tricky thing is that's a hard one. Because, you know, it could be a mess or, you know, and you can even say that. You could say like, wow, like, is that something to be celebrated or is that something to be like anxiety provoking? Because sometimes the holidays are awesome for me and sometimes they suck. That's the reaction. Right? Which one is it for you? Are you looking forward to it? Got it? Okay. Next thing. Hey, did you hear about the volcano erupting? What's the reaction? They're asking a question. Followed. Okay, so then what's... Yeah, perfect. No, what volcano? Volcanoes are dope. Can I come? Right? Wow, that's crazy. Wicked. Which volcano? No, that's wild. I didn't hear about that. Right? That's what she said. Don't use that's what she said. Volcanoes are dope. Which volcano? Yeah, so I guess this is turning into whatever they say. Just say that that's dope. And then ask another question, which works really well. Like, I want y'all to try this, okay? Just see how far you can get in a conversation by saying that's dope and asking a question, following it up. Are you going home for Thanksgiving? Thanksgiving's dope. Are you going home for Thanksgiving? Yeah, I am. I'm going to see my family. Families are dope. Is your family dope? Yeah, my family's pretty great. I have an awesome dog. Dogs are dope. What kind of dog do you have? See how far you can get, yeah, and become an NPC in a conversation. I kid y'all not. So seriously, if you want to like learn how to basically participate in a conversation, it's just the 1-2 punch. And here's the thing, if you're like with 5 people and you're doing it every 5th statement, you're not going to sound quite like an NPC, even though you are an NPC. Then I'm going to give y'all one last tip. This tip is transformational, but is also terrifying. Are you ready for it? If you are in a group and people are making plans about stuff and they don't seem to be including you, you can say, hey, that sounds awesome. Is it an open invitation? Is it cool if I come? You can just ask. And pay attention to your reaction to doing that. Right? Everyone's like, oh my God. And look who's got a case of the what ifs. We talked about the what ifs. Look at it. Look, you've got a case of the what ifs. That's why you're the filler friend. And if they say you can't come or it's not an open invitation, then that's totally fine, right? You know that these people are not interested in you. You're not stuck feeling like a filler friend. Asked and answered. Right? Fun past 1989 saying, I've never done that. Is it okay? Is it an open invitation? Can I come along? And people may think, oh my God, like who's this weirdo who's inviting himself? He's not inviting himself or she's not inviting herself. She's just asking, can she come along? Open invitation. Right? And then here's the follow-up. If they say, yeah, sure, you can come. Cool. You can also like, you can kind of like double down. You can say like, I don't know if y'all are like friends and stuff. Like if you guys really, I'm curious, I'd love to learn more, but I don't want to be like a 5th wheel or anything like that. If you guys have like a thing going, like I wouldn't want to intrude, but I'm really interested. You can kind of like, if you're concerned that you may be pressuring, then they're like, no, it's fine that you can come. Right? And then you can say, cool. And so you can be a little bit forward. You can say like, okay, so like, how are we figuring, what are y'all doing? When are y'all going? Things like that. And then when you go, this is really, really important, right? Because remember, you're quiet and you've got a case of the what ifs. You start by saying, hey, thanks for inviting me. Or thanks for, setting this up. I really appreciate it. And then at the end of it, you want to say, hey, thanks, I really had a good time. Perceived interest. You got to reinforce it. Because if you're the quiet type and you don't really say much when you go, you at least want to say, hey, thanks for inviting me. I really had a good time. I'm on the quieter side. I hope that's okay. And then last tip, you ready for it? Smile. Hey, I'm on the quieter side. Thanks for inviting me, though. I really had a great time. May not seem like it. Look, y'all see? We're teaching you how to be a better NPC. Smile. Perceived interest. Are you smiling? Smiling is dope. What makes you smile the most? All right, so you got to be a little bit careful because we don't want to be creepers. Right? We don't want to be, oh, you're going home for Thanksgiving? Where do you live? Can I come? Is it an open invitation? Don't put it together like that, chat. Don't put it together like that. That's bad. Okay? That's bad. Don't do that. The principles are correct, though. I recognize if stitched together in a particular way, you can make something that we're not talking about making. But I would say 90% of the time, this is totally fine. Oh, y'all are going paintballing? I've never been paintballing before. I'm probably going to get owned, but I'd love to try it. Is it okay if I tag along? Right? And then like you show up and then you're going to get owned and you're going to be like, hey, I kind of got owned. I'd love to do it again. I'm learning. But can we try to like balance the teams a little bit so I don't get owned so hard? Once again, smile. Right? All right, so does that make sense? So common problem, people are filler friends. And I think the problem with being a filler friend is that we don't really know how to like break in. And we don't really understand why we're not getting invited. And the key thing, the most common reason that people don't get invited that is actionable that we're kind of talking about today, it could be things like status and stuff, like who knows. But in terms of what you can do, at least make sure that you can do the things that you're doing. And at the top of the list is your perceived interest. Especially when groups are forming. It's different if something is like already formed. But even then, you can let people know explicitly what your interest is. Right? So it's perceived interest. How engaged are you? How do you be engaged in a conversation? Be careful about the what ifs. Oh no, what if they think I'm stupid? Or what if they don't like anime? Or what if they think I'm a weeb? Whatever. So notice that, and notice that's why you're not participating. And so very simple participation is the 1-2 punch. A reaction followed by a question. That is dope. What do you think is dope? What if I don't know what to say? That's what I'm saying is Code Monkey is an excellent question. What if you don't know what to say? That's what I'm laying it out, like what you say. It's a reaction. You can react to anything. Like, did you see oh, we're talking about the weather. Rained yesterday. Rain is dope. Yeah, it was like, it rained a lot. It hasn't rained in a long time. Sometimes I don't know if there's a follow-up question there. So there's some kind of ambiguity. You can kind of dig into that. Okay, so this is a great question. DARCSS, Darks, is asking, what if you don't like small talk? It's a good question. So let's think through that. What if I don't like small talk? First of all, why don't you like small talk? So a lot of times the reason that people don't like small talk is because they don't know how to do it or they feel uncomfortable doing it. Right? Like a lot of times the reason that people don't like stuff is because they don't know how to do it properly. So that's the first thing is, are you good at it? Secondly, sometimes people don't like small talk because it feels fake, feels shallow, feels like there isn't a deep connection. And that's where you've got to decide, whether you want to play that game to get to the deeper stuff. Because most human beings have a dialogue tree. And you have to go through the upper levels of the dialogue tree to get to the deep levels of the dialogue tree. Right? Have you been to the Cloud District? I've heard it's very nice. right? They don't just like, you don't walk up to people and they just like give you a quest. I mean, sometimes they do in games nowadays. But that's just kind of the way that the world works. It doesn't have to work that way. And what I've also found is that you can also get good at skipping past a lot of the small talk. Because I don't know if you start to have like a, you can get to like a conversation about people's favorite animes and important themes in animes. You can do that in 3 questions. Anime is dope. What are some of your favorites? Oh, you really like Attack on Titan? I thought it was pretty epic. It kind of terrifies me though. What did you like about it? Oh, okay. Like you liked like the stuff. Like I sometimes really wonder, like I really like how it has a very like mixed view of morality, right? So like at the very beginning, there's like a good guy and there's a bad guy. And it makes me really wonder about, who are the good guys and who are the bad guys? And like, it makes me really wonder about the world. And then you can have a conversation about morality, philosophy, and Attack on Titan if you want to. Right? Like you can get to deeper stuff pretty quick. And then if you really don't like small talk, then the other question that I have for you is, okay, so you don't like it, but are you willing to participate in it to form connections and relationships and get invitations and things like that? Because people will say, I don't like exercise. Well, you don't have to like it. It's just what's important to you. Is taking care of your body important to you? And you can do something that you don't like. Does that make sense? It's a very common problem that people don't like small talk. People feel like it's not genuine. People sort of feel like it's shallow. It's a waste of time. I'm not disputing any of those things. It's just most people require some amount of small talk, right? So just get good at it. And you'll be surprised at how little small talk you have to have. I hate small talk, which is why when I interact with people, I try to advance the conversation to something that I can find interesting as quickly as possible. Right? It's not, and we've done that on stream like 1,000 times. Right? So like, and what you'll find is that other people are interested in not having small talk too. You just have to give them an opening, and most people don't know how to advance the conversation. That's where you really have to become a conversation expert and advance the conversation. So what if you don't relate to the conversation that is happening around you? Great question. So if you don't relate to the conversation that's happening around you, one of the best things that you can do is be curious. So I have a group of friends who are all in the world of finance, and I don't understand what the hell they're talking about. So when I get bored of the conversation, I'll let them like trundle along for a little bit, 10 or 15 minutes of like me just not participating in the conversation. I'll be like, yo, can someone explain to me what on earth y'all are talking about? Can you tell me what an I bond is? Can you tell me, what crypto is? Can you tell me what Tether is? And if there's a group of people who are talking about something that you are not interested in, one of the best ways to participate in the conversation, because they're going to love this, they're going to love explaining it to you. Because the only thing that people like more than talking about a particular thing amongst themselves is explaining it to someone who's genuinely interested. Right? They're like, what on earth is an NFT? NFT is a digital whatever. I don't even know. And then it's like, wait, so what do people pay for? It's the future. The future is dope. What part of the future is it? They're like, it's the whole future. I don't understand. I understand the words coming out of your mouth, but I don't understand what you said. Can you explain to me how NFTs are the whole future? And this is where things get fun for you. Because this is where they start talking and they have no idea what they're talking about. No, I'm kidding. But seriously, just ask people. Like, I've never, I don't know anything about this. Can you all fill me in? Like, what does this mean? What does this mean? What does this mean? And most people, just think about it. If you're passionate about something and someone comes and is like genuinely curious about it, you're going to be like, I'm not going to talk to you, noob. No, like most people love talking about it. We did an interview recently where someone was telling me about the nuances of a balance in a card game. And it was fascinating, man. It's like, I don't know anything about that. I don't know if y'all caught that interview. But you can just see how much people love talking about stuff they're interested in. It's cool to hear people talk about things that they're passionate about. Right? It's cool. Like, I learned something.